Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're joining from. Welcome to our World Zoonoses Day webinar. The World Zoonoses Day is celebrated every 6th of July to commemorate the achievement of Louis Pasteur, who administered the first vaccine against zoonotic disease, rabies, in 1885. This webinar is organized by the Transnational African Zoonosis Education Campaign Project Consortium. The Transnational African Zoonosis Education Campaign is a project aimed at reducing the risks of zoonotic spillover in the participating countries and on the continent as a whole by creating public awareness on health risks associated with wildlife trade. The countries participating in this campaign are Nigeria, Liberia, Cameroon, and Zambia. And Pro Wildlife, as you can see on the screen, is a sponsoring partner on this campaign. This webinar will be happening in two parts. The first part will be hosting experts in the field on what zoonotic diseases are and activities that are related to wildlife trade that facilitate the transmission of zoonotic diseases. And on these, we have two guest speakers who are definitely up to this task, as you will discover eventually in the course of the webinar. We have Dr. Egbetade Adeniyi from the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta in Nigeria, and we have Isabel Michler from the International Alliance Against Health Risks in Wildlife Trade from Germany. In the second part of the webinar, the organizations represented on the project, on the Transnational African Zoonosis Education Campaign project, will be presenting on their activities so far and their plans for the next coming months. This webinar is not just to inform you about zoonotic diseases and how they can be gotten and what you can do to mitigate the risks, but also to invite you to participate in what these organizations will be doing in your country and playing your part in helping us prevent the next pandemic. Moving forward, I would invite the first speaker, Dr. Egbetade Adeniyi, to proceed with his presentation. Thank you. Dr. Adeniyi is a graduate of University of Nigeria in Nsukka. He graduated in 1998 at the top of his class. That's great. That can be a great achievement. You know what it means to go to university and graduate on top of your class. And so we have a big shot on board today. Then he holds a master's degree from the Royal Vet College in London in wild animal health. Wow. And he has worked on the project that I'm working for right now for over 10 years as a veterinarian and eventually as a senior operations manager. That's amazing. He has vast experience in conservation medicine and wildlife surgery. By this, I would like to invite Dr. Egbetade Adeniyi to proceed with his presentation. And like I said, after all the presentations, there will be room for us to ask questions and interact. So please listen. Thank you.
Morning, everyone, and happy World Zoonosis Day. Basically, because of the scope of the audience, it's just going to be a form of reminding us of what zoonosis is and what we as humans have been doing to contribute negatively and positively to zoonosis. So the outline basically will go through what is zoonosis, the importance of the World Zoonosis Day, the anthropological contributions, the emergence of zoonotic events, how do we break the chain? And we end up with a few words as conclusions. So zoonosis or zoonotic diseases are those that are transmissible between humans and animals. And it could also happen the other way around, between animals and humans. There are various terms which not bother ourselves with that can actually differentiate the various forms of zoonosis that we have. But it is worthy to note that most zoonotic diseases emerged due to increased human-wildlife interaction, plus or minus. Either the environment has been disturbed, Either the environment was degraded or due to fragmented habitats. For us, COVID is still fresh in our memory. Ebola is fresh in our memories. And we have the avian and swine influenzas, which have always been coming up and on. And of late, we also had outbreaks of monkeypox, which was universal. There was also one outbreak of monkeypox in Nigeria, I think in the first quarter of this year. So zoonoses and zoonotic diseases, they are boundaryless, they are borderless. These are diseases without borders. They are pathogens without borders. And this is also evident in the captions of the various captions of the World Zoonosis Day that we actually have. There was one that says, "One health, one world, prevent zoonosis, stop the spread. Save animals, healthy people. Prevent zoonosis, save wildlife, healthy people." And the key one, protect wild animals, prevent zoonosis. Basically, it's all about stopping the spread, saving the environment, saving the people, saving the animals. The World Zoonosis Day was first marked on the 6th of July, 2007. So invariably, this is the 17th edition of the World Zoonosis Day. And that was to commemorate Louis Pasteur, who actually administered the first rabies vaccine to Mr. Joseph Meister 122 years ago. While the word zoonosis was actually coined by Dr. Vicho when he was working on a particular parasite of pigs, Nella spiralis, and the word was coined by these perfect gentlemen of historical value. For what we know, more than 6 in 10 of every infectious disease have zoonotic origin. Every 10 diseases that you have around you, 6 probably has connection with animals. So why do we celebrate the World Zoonotic Day? One is to raise global awareness that is targeted against zoonotic diseases, or highlight the roles of zoonotic diseases and promote the understanding of the causes and the impacts. These impacts could be social, economical, and it has international repercussions. To encourage measures that will prevent the transmission, outbreaks, and the attendant disruptions that we have when we have outbreaks. COVID outbreak was a typical example of the quantum of disruptions that will happen when zoonotic diseases come knocking on our door. It's also aimed to take steps to prevent zoonosis, limit the spread, and protect human and animal health. More so, we should also celebrate frontline individuals and agencies who are at the front burner of diseases and issues that are related to disease emergence. So basically, it's a one health, one world, shared space team. We have sectors and disciplines, environment, humans, and animals. The ecosystem, the healthy animals, the healthy humans, all form a way to actually protect us against both the envisaged and the already happening zoonotic diseases. In essence, the society is not just belonging to humans, or it's a mixture of what we do to the environment and what we do to the animals. So it's this interplay that do come up with any disruption in this interplay will always spell doom for humankind, and the animals are also at the receiving end of zoonotic diseases. Just on a simpler note, zoonotic diseases can spread either directly by having body fluid contacts with fluids like urine, feces, blood, and this makes people that process meat, people that treat animals, field researchers, makes us to be at risk of zoonotic spread. Also, it could be spread indirectly through aerosols. That would be through airborne, vector-borne, it could be foodborne, and it could be waterborne. So you can see that the environment on its own is the petri dish any emergence of any disease. And as we are part of the environment, the animals are part of the environment. It's like we are all contributing to the emergence and re-emergence of disease. I took this picture some time ago in a park that I will not want to mention its name, but you can see the baboon comfortably sitting on the car. Definitely, the baboon did not drive the car to that point, but this could be as a result of shared spaces. And when we share spaces together, sure, we are going to share some pathogen. I'll quickly go through some anthropogenic drivers of zoonotic disease. Disruption in animal biodiversity. By disruptions in animal biodiversity, we are talking about both the quality of where the animals are staying, the abundance of the animal, and the spread of the animals. Any alteration in any of these dynamics be an invitation for emergence of zoonotic. Other activities like bush burning, uncontrolled hunting, commercial bushmeat hunting, local and international pet trade, they are all contributing to animal biodiversity disruption. The rate at which the human population is rising in an unchecked fashion. There is also increase in incursion into the wild. There is increase in meeting points. And the more they are increasing meeting points, forest is, say, 10,000 square kilometers before, and now it's receded to 5,000 square kilometers. Definitely, some people took over those portions of the land, and there are times the animals will always want to come back to where they initially reside, and this increases the number of meeting points. There's also an increase in rate of poverty and the population that is within the poverty belt. All forms, various forms of environmental pollution will increase the spread. Plastic pollution, there are loads of die-offs as a result of marine mammals actually taking plastics, having foreign body obstructions, having obstructions of the GIT because of plastic pollution. Wars and civil unrest have also been noted via zoonotic episode. Currently in Europe, there is a fear that because of the increase in number of stray dogs, the Russia-Ukraine conflict might actually increase the incidence of rabies in some European countries. The ease of traveling as per global integration is also affecting the rate at which pathogens can move. The more humans move about, the more we carry all these pathogens about. And care is not taken for everywhere we go, for everywhere we land as humans. We are dropping one form of germs or the other. So, shortly, how do we break the chain? Only way, one of the ways to break the chain is prevention, prevention, and prevention. There should be awareness, avoidance, and proper hygiene. One cannot stress the importance. Proper hygiene, simple hand washing, proper hand washing go a long way. Actually break the chain of outbreak. There must be prompt evaluation, early detection, and diagnosis. Have correct approaches to therapy. And I mean that correct approaches to therapy means complete, it's not just chemotherapy, also management of psychology or whosoever is having issues with infections is also very important. Also, societal discrimination. Once they realize that someone is having, there is an outbreak of infection, a particular locality, incidences and the happenings surrounding the COVID outbreak in Nigeria, typical examples. People will not allow you to their domain when you have a nose mask. Possibly believe that they lie that it's not existing. So they don't want to have anything to do, anything to prevent when it comes to COVID outbreak. We need an enforcement of agreement, laws and regulations concerning wildlife, concerning habitat deforestation, concerning the environment. And we have to establish workable terms wildlife marketing. There are still loads of wildlife parks in about international markets. There can be no wildlife parks that actively at that structure resident animals of such forest. And this is something after that I have passion for, continuing active and passive surveillance. When we do passive surveillance of wild habitats, we can always notice subtle changes in the environment, which help us to notify authorities of that something might be happening. There was a time we had monkeypox outbreak somewhere in the bush. What we noticed was just that squirrels were dying off. Not thinking about monkeypox. But we started to see signs of monkeypox. If we had taken tab on squirrels of that particular forest, probably would have been an indication that this die off, not typical, and we would have been able to take measures to prevent the spread. What is the wildlife connection? How do we use wildlife to fight against exploitation? Must try to encourage pride of ownership and responsibilities where these animals reside. There to the requirements of treaties and laws, and there are strict enforcement of wildlife regulations. Also, there is a need for most African countries to upgrade their obsolete laws so that these will have financial and social impact in that. Also encourage passive surveillance of animal health that we should provide logistics support, adaptation centers, breeding centers, and we should protect wildlife and the demands. And this means that health, security, and societal global concern. World Zoonosis Day is a reminder of close relationship, a shared future, and close environment. I want to acknowledge the organizers of World Zoonosis Day. I want to thank my home base, the foundation of my salvation ideas, the Drill Rehabilitation and Training Center. I'd like to thank you now. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Gbetade Adeni. As expected, I hope we now have a better understanding, especially of the factors that facilitate the transmission of zoonotic diseases, especially in our context in Africa, because the presentation is basically domiciled in this part of the world. So I believe we now understand the concept of shared space, shared pathogen. If you have any question at all, you can note them down. And after all the presentations, we'll allow people to raise their hands and ask their questions, right? So by that, I would proceed to the next presenter, who is Isabel Michler. Isabel Michler is a dedicated professional with a BSc in molecular biomedicine and a Master's of Science in global health. Wow. Our passions lie in One Health and planetary health, and then she joined International Alliance Against Health Risks in Wildlife Trade in October 2022, and she has been working at the Secretariat since then. So Isabel, you can proceed to commence your presentation. We look forward to hearing from you.
Great. Thank you so much for your very kind introduction. So let me briefly share my screen. I hope you can all see it now.
Yes. Yeah, we
Perfect.
can see your screen now.
Great. Okay, so to give you a quick introduction, the International Alliance Against Health Risks in Wildlife Trade is an open, inclusive, and collaborative space where stakeholders can join forces to better understand and reduce the threat of pathogen spillover from wildlife trades and markets. It's a network of experts, implementers, policymakers, and the Alliance has two goals that it's working towards and the first one is to substantially reduce the risk of zoonotic spillover and stepping up responses to human and animal health risks caused by direct and indirect contact with wildlife and their products among the wildlife trade chain. And then secondly, enhancing international and national awareness, knowledge, and policies with regard to the first goal to narrow the gap between science and implementation. The Alliance works with the One Health approach, and within the One Health framework, it has a specific scope and focus, so to say. So the focus is on emergence of zoonotic pathogens from wildlife and its drivers, spillover risks and mechanisms. This also includes social ecology of zoonotic disease emergence, so the dynamics at the human-wildlife interface. Furthermore, it includes monitoring and surveillance, early warning systems, and prevention. And the really specific focus of the Alliance is on human-wildlife contact and the whole wildlife trade and contact chain. This includes extraction, consumption, processing, sale, trade, and so on, and all the associated health risks. And with its work, the Alliance is brokering knowledge and insights to bridge the gap between science and implementation. And ultimately, this should contribute to effective interventions. Furthermore, by fostering and exchange and collaboration, the aim is to raise awareness and understanding and also empower evidence-based actions that are socially just, sustainable, and effective. And by now, the platform is actually including almost 150 members already. It's joined of individual members and also organizations. And to give you a bit more of a concrete idea of what the Alliance is doing, so there are events that are hosted, 2 formats currently. We have expert talks where latest science and policy dialogue is exchanged, and then Voices from the Ground, which focuses more on local realities, and presentation of ongoing projects. Currently, there are also 3 working groups, one on science policy interface, one on transformative system change, the big picture, and then the 3rd one on evaluation and effective interventions. And then there are currently 17 Alliance-funded projects, one of which is implemented by ProWildlife here. I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. And there are also, of course, many more projects by the members of the Alliance. They can all be found on the website. And then in the next months, there will be a governmental consultation facility being launched, which offers specific support for governments, ministry, the public sector, and so on, to accelerate knowledge into action, translation, and also in the end improve regulation on health risk reduction. So this is a map of the currently funded projects. So there are 17, some are active in more than one country, so there are more than 17 countries highlighted on the map. And to talk a bit about why the Alliance chose to fund the ProWildlife project and the consortium. It's because the approach to work with wildlife sanctuaries in combination with an education campaign seems to be very well suited for the specific context, in our opinion, because sanctuaries play such an important role. They're really at the interface between wildlife trafficking, wildlife contact, and health risks, and so on. They are key players in the conversation of illegally trafficked wildlife, also of wildlife that was privately held. So the animals that are there really come into intensive contact with humans, and the sanctuaries have a lot of knowledge about all the traded species. And of course, they also play an important role in communication and are close to the communities. So that's a very suitable approach. So if you're interested to learn more about the Alliance, feel free to subscribe to a newsletter and check out the website. You can participate in the upcoming Alliance events, or of course become a member. It's free of charge, and becoming a member gives you access to expert knowledge and insights into local realities. You can join one of the working groups, 1 or 2, stay updated about the members' projects that are going on, and also gain access to the members area, which helps you to connect with Alliance members globally, share and find job or research opportunities, findings, or conference attendances. So if you'd like to learn more, here are some contact details, and there will also be an onboarding event for interested organizations and individuals at the end of the month. Yeah, and I think with that, I hand over to you again, Dada.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's fascinating that you presented quite a lot of opportunities to participants, especially ones from the African region. I presume many of the participants on this webinar from Africa don't know so much about your alliance earlier on. And now they know, and I hope that this will be an avenue for us to increase our participation in the great job you're doing. Thank you very much, Isabel. I'm expecting you to have a lot of questions at the end of all the presentations, and yeah, I'm sure you would provide answers to all of them. Now we go to the next part of this event, which is presentation from the partners on the Transnational African Zoonosis Education Campaign. So to start with, Pro-Wildlife, the funding partner in Germany, will take the stage now. And I will hand over to Dr. Sandra Arthur to present about Pro-Wildlife.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doda. My presentation is pretty short because I think the work on the ground by our partners is much more important. But just to give an overview, what was the idea behind this project? Especially over the last 2.5 or 3 years, there were dozens, if not even hundreds, of scientific publications, especially triggered by the corona pandemic. And many of these scientific studies are conducted in laboratories in industrial countries and are very specific. So they are talking about virus clades, the food safety systems, for example, mathematic models, or transmission vulnerability, persistence, and nanotherapy. So, which is extremely important for the scientific bubble to develop strategies, also for policymakers. But of course, this is far away from the ground. And then we have, on the other side, we have headlines in the media, some of them, and therefore you need to be careful, some of them even fake news, stating that, for example, the corona pandemic started in a laboratory, which is, from all what we know so far, is not true. It came from a wildlife market, a wet market in Wuhan in China. And some other headlines are just leaving people maybe helpless or fearful, such as maybe talking about the next pandemic, which will for sure come, and then the coronavirus, which really was extremely new and scaring in some way. And then, of course, we have several outbreaks of Ebola, and we heard so much about the death rates after the COVID outbreak, and all of this is making people a little bit helpless, especially on the ground. And therefore, we thought about a project with our sanctuary partners in Africa, and this project aims to, I need to adapt to the system here. We want to translate the scientific findings of that bubble into an understandable language for a broad audience on the ground and the daily life. And what is extremely important is to increase the prevention instead of just reacting to outbreaks of zoonotic diseases. We also wish to highlight the risk of bushmeat consumption, which is a huge factor in African countries as a source of pathogens, and therefore the related increased risk of spillover events. And we, wait a second, that was too quick. We wish to underline that in African countries, it's not only a bushmeat consumption, but also keeping wildlife, such as primates, as a pet. And as you will see in the next presentations, this wildlife doesn't make good pets. And then finally, we want to promote the One Health principle, which is very simple. Health of us people is closely connected to the health of animals and a healthy planet. And with our partners in these African countries, we have found the perfect partners to conduct this campaign because the wildlife rescue centers, with their education work on the ground and an outreach to local communities, some of them even in the far remote areas, and with their direct personal access to a wide audience and a large number of students, consumers, etc. And finally, with their wildlife orphans as living arguments and as ambassadors against bushmeat trade, because these animals show the face of the victims of the bushmeat trade, what it does to biodiversity, and finally, what it does as a risk for humans. And that's why I'm happy to have this webinar today, and I would like to give over to the next one. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Sandra. I believe the participants, especially the ambassadors, now have a clear understanding of the reason why this campaign came up, and they understand better the objectives that we're trying to achieve with the Transnational African Zoonosis Education Campaign. Coincidentally, the next presenter is myself, and yeah, I'll present the Nigerian part of the campaign so far. All right, like I said earlier on, I'm Dada Onawala. I'm a veterinarian, and I work for Panjidos on the Drew Ranch project. So what exactly will I be presenting now? I would like to reiterate the objectives of the campaign, then I'll deliver on the approach that we are using in Nigeria based on the peculiarities of the country. And then, yeah, I'll introduce you to some of our activities, the ones we've started and the ones we intend to do and how we intend to go about them. And more importantly, how you can also participate. Like I said, it is not a one-man job. It's everybody coming together to fight against the incidence of another zoonotic pandemic, so to say, right? So going straight to the business. All right, so the objectives of the campaign can be summarized in this statement you're seeing on the screen. So we want to reduce the risk of zoonotic spillover by creating public awareness on the ground, that's on site in countries where this matters, and about health risks related to wildlife trade and activities that are linked to wildlife trade that can facilitate the transmission of zoonotic diseases. And we want to promote the One Health approach. So we want people to understand better that it's not all about human health. It's about the health of humans, the health of animals, and the health of the environment. If one of these components, the three components of the One Health triad, is sick, the others cannot be healthy. So how exactly do we want to go about this? Right, there are two main activity base that we're using. One, to create a nationwide awareness on zoonosis, that zoonotic diseases are factors or activities that people carry out on daily basis that aid the transmission of zoonotic diseases. Then we want to generate a sense of pride in people that don't engage in these activities already, or people that will listen to our message and quickly go in the direction of what favors One Health, that is the health of humans, animals, and the environment. So we would like, these are the two things we would like to achieve by all the activities we have listed, right? So in Nigeria, our focus are 5 activities that are very prominent and they facilitate the transmission of zoonotic disease. The first one is hunting, then bushmeat consumption. I'll explain a little bit on them later. Then using wildlife aspects, quite a number of people do that around here. Deforestation, illegal logging, and all those related activities, and wildlife trade, anything that culminates into wildlife trade, we like to discourage them. And all these activities listed on the screen are things we want to do to discourage people from doing all these things. Yeah, so Nigeria is the most populous of all the countries participating in this consortium. We have a population of over 220 million people, and Nigeria is a very diverse country. Yeah, there are more than 250 ethnic groups. We have almost the same number of cultural and language groups. And then we have this religious dichotomy in the country as well. And yeah, the language is also a problem because for almost every ethnic group in the country, there's a different language. So how do we overcome all of these? to reach out to the vast population that we have, we need to look for a tool that can reach out to everybody, a tool via which we can reach everyone wherever they are. And you look critically, that is the media, social media, the soft media in whatever way it presents. And to also overcome the challenge of the diverse population and all of that, and language, we are using a language that almost everybody speaks, which is the Pidgin English. We have a version of English in Nigeria that almost everybody understands, and that reflects in some of the materials I'll be displaying in the next slides. Now, to introduce you to our activities, we've started a radio broadcast session every Tuesdays and Thursdays on 2 different radio stations in Cross River State. Then, the radio coverage for these stations will not reach the entire country. How do we intend to reach everybody in the country with this message? We'll be creating a Spotify channel via which we'll be uploading all the radio programs that we have conducted on this campaign. And then people can listen after they have been aired in this radio station. So that is how we intend to reach everybody in the country with the radio program. So it won't be only people in the states where we are domiciled or the neighboring states that will listen to the message. To be everybody in the country that will eventually be reached, or almost everybody, if that is better to put it that way. Then we're also partnering on radio programs. We're partnering with local NGOs that have radio programs that related to the subject matter. For example, yesterday I was live on Sparkling FM to speak about protection of wild animals and how that helps us prevent zoonotic diseases. And we used the airtime for an organization called We the People. It's a local NGO, and we have lined up a couple more NGOs like that will be partnering with to feature on their programs that are related to what we are doing, the One Health concept in general, but specifically the discouragement of bushmeat consumption, hunting, deforestation, and all these activities that culminate into increased risk of zoonotic spillover. Right. So one thing I'd like to point out in the radio program, you'd see bushmeat longerthroats. That is the Pidgin way of presenting greedy consumption of something, right? So that is to reflect, local reality. That bushmeat longer, because people consuming bushmeat in this part of the world, they really don't do it just because they lack other sources of protein or for any tangible reason. Just do it because they are greedy. They want to consume and keep eating everything. So on physical outreach, over the past few days, I've reached over 500 pupils and secondary school students to the message, and I shared materials with them so that they can serve as secondary ambassadors for the campaign. Wherever they put up our materials, people are going to see the message and they will reckon with it. Now, for the design of the materials that we are using, we are putting into consideration materials that have a longer retention period with people that have it. For example, a jotter. If you have a jotter, you use it to put things down. You take it almost everywhere. Anyway, you take the jotter to, people see what's on the jotter, and then they read the message, and indirectly the message is getting to them, right? We also have calendars, which people hang in their own when they have visitors coming through. So it's not just the family you're handing one calendar to, it's everybody in the household and people coming to visit them that will see the calendar eventually. So we consider that a means to also, expand our outreach, not just the people we're able to contact directly and immediately, but in the nearest future, people that will also have contact with these materials. All right. So now it would be, I wouldn't say difficult for us to reach everywhere. Nigeria has 36 states, right? So it may not be very easy for us to visit the all 36 states and, go out to the message. So for that, we instituted the Zoonotic Education Campaign Ambassadors Program, which we take a representative, at least one representative from every state in the country on the program to serve as ambassadors. And they are primary function is to relay the message that we are carrying about prevention of zoonotic diseases to people around them in the states where they are serving. So just about a week ago, the call for these ambassadors closed, and we have pre-selected a number of them, and the final interview will come up next week, and we'll select them, and they will be the ones to help us pass the message in their communities and, yeah, by extension to the whole country. That is the grand aim of the whole scheme. All right, then 220 million people is a very big thing to consider for the country. And aside using the ambassadors to reach out, we also need to indirectly touch more people. So we put up a social media campaign, and on the screen you can see our handles, and it's not just for Nigerians, anybody can follow, just that the message are directly for Nigerians, but you can also follow because you may have Nigerian friends on your handles within your network that may need to see the message. So we have a social media campaign we are running almost every week. We will be putting out relevant and local content that will speak to all these activities I've highlighted that people are engaging in that facilitate the transmission of zoonotic diseases, trying to discourage them, right? And yeah, we'll go as far as we can with the social media messaging. We'll relate to things happening almost instantly. For example, you see at the top right of the picture slide, there is a picture speaking to when the federal government warned Nigerians to stop consuming bushmeat and palm because of the outbreak of anthrax in the neighboring country, Ghana, right? So this is the model for the social media campaign. We intend to expand it over the next few weeks. The hashtags you're seeing at the bottom, sorry. Okay. So the hashtags you are seeing at the bottom left of the screen are the hashtag we'll be using to expand the campaign. So that means if you want for ambassadors and for all the participating sanctuaries, would prefer to have this hashtag on the post so that everybody can easily trace what messages have been passed regarding this particular campaign. So lastly, these are the materials we have produced so far. We are still in production. We'll still produce some more materials that have higher retention period, stickers, and so on and so forth, so that people can see not just immediately, but in the nearest future. So what do we intend to do moving forward? We would like to engage the ambassadors to have physical interactions with people around them in their communities and to pass the message to them. We also have a Spotify channel hosting all the radio programs that will be airing locally, and also having some podcast conversations with some experts on zoonotic diseases. Then we intend to, as a product of this campaign, to put together a zoonosis education campaign toolkit for people that want to undertake a similar endeavor even after the whole campaign has taken place, or even during the time in which we'll be running the campaign. So we don't want the campaign to end here and now. We want it to continue after the year-long partnership that we are having with other sanctuaries. So we'd like to put a local and relevant zoonosis education campaign toolkit that will be adapted from our experience over like 10, 12 months that will be running this campaign. All right, so thank you. I believe there will be questions for me at the end of the day. I'll be happy to answer them. I'll hand over to the representative of Limbe Wildlife Center in Cameroon, who will be presenting on their activities so far and what they intend to do moving forward. Thank you. Wilson, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you, Dauda.
All right.
You're all welcome into the Limbe Wildlife Zoonosis Education Awareness Campaign. My name is Ate Wilson, and it will be great for me to put this forward. We started the zoonotic education campaign by training our staff. We organized a workshop with our staff, and the education team and the veterinary department were able to coordinate this workshop. And the staffs were separated into 4 different groups, and each group was able to identify a disease, a zoonotic disease, and present it on. It was good for us to start with our staff before going out. They say charity begins at home. So when we started, it was good, and they had to discuss on the following. They discussed on TB, Ebola, monkeypox, and rabies. And it was also great that they discussed under the following guidelines of the causes, the symptoms, the duration, how we can take the incubation period, and the prevention. Next. Next. Yeah, next was the outreach education campaign. We had a grand rally that brought the 14 different schools that we are dealing with a population of more than 2,200 students. It was great for us to pass this zoonotic education awareness campaign message to this number of children in 14 different schools. So it was also good that we put out T-shirts to deserving students as prizes for them with a zoonotic message on it. And we also awarded them with certificates. And during this period, these students were very happy, and they had to perform a lot of dancing, celebrating, and raising awareness about zoonoses. Yes, next was the community outreach program, where we went to Ndame Island, and it's a village in Wuvia community. And there we had more than 200 local community members who turned out to celebrate a cultural festival. And there was canoe race competition. So we took the opportunity also to pass the zoonotic message awareness campaign. Now you can see that we put up our roll up. Our education team was there to pass on the message to the local community. And we also had the opportunity to be televised and interviewed. And also the newspaper publication, the newspaper coverage also took place. It was also good for us that we organized and went to the beach. We did beach cleaning with some students and local community. It was wonderful because we put on a zoonotic message on our T-shirt again, and a football match took place to celebrate a zoonotic campaign at the beach. And the T-shirt has a message, a zoonotic message on it, and the players put it on them, and they play. And through that way, we're able to explain again what zoonoses are all about and the danger we face in dealing with wildlife. So there also, it was important for us, and students were connected through this way and the local community. What next on our program is to organize workshops with targeted community groups like chiefs, health workers, educators, and we'll also continue the zoonotic education program in schools. We will also have to put up a football championship, which we have started at the beach. It will continue in local targeted villages. We will also have a traveling theater play with a powerful message on zoonotic campaign, education awareness. We also put up the billboard, posters, and flyers. And we had also discussed about using the pre and post evaluation questionnaire on which we will be carrying it along with us like any other sanctuary with a zoonotic message on it. And we will have to put on the radio and media outreach campaign. That's what we intend to do. And on what we have already done, we have produced T-shirts with zoonotic messages inside, like protect forests, protect wildlife, prevent zoonoses. And we've also produced posters, roll up, and banners. That's what we have done so far on material. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Wilson, for that wonderful presentation. As you can see, that there's a lot of social innovation going on there, use of football matches and the rest of them, which I really appreciate so much. Thank you. And yeah, we'll wait till we're done with the presentations to take questions. The next sanctuary that I'll present is Libasa Wildlife Sanctuary in Liberia. Susan, you can have the floor.
Thank you very much, Dauda. Can you see me? I put my video on.
Yes, we can see you. Your presentation is on and your video is also on.
Okay, thank you very much. We really, the Libasa Wildlife Sanctuary team are the only sanctuary that take all animals in, and we work very closely with the government, the FDA, so that's the Forestry Development Authority here. We've had over 70 different species of animals through, of birds, mammals, and reptiles. We started in 2017, and up to now we've had over 700 animals come through the sanctuary, and we've released over 350. Okay, so here at Libasa Wildlife Sanctuary, we are working very closely with Nature Compact, who is a local NGO in Liberia, headed by Borwin. So we've joined together and we aim to do many things to raise zoonotic awareness in Liberia. Okay, so one of the first things that we do is education at the sanctuary. We have over 2
Susan, we can't hear you.
animals here at the moment, and we have opportunity to be a sanctuary, to be able to tell people about the sanctuary and to raise awareness of zoonotic diseases. Now, Liberia has had a bad time with zoonotic diseases. We had a very bad case of Ebola in 2014, between 2014 and 2016. Over 10,600 people became ill of the virus, and nearly 50% of those died of it. We have a real culture in Liberia of eating bushmeat, and this is something that we want to help to prevent by giving scientific evidence along with this campaign. So in 2014, the government also banned the handling of bushmeat because they realized how important it was not to have it, and how it did help with the transmission of Ebola. Okay, so we're working very closely with Nature Compact. We're doing education at the sanctuary, but we're also going to do outreach.
Susan, we can't hear you. Maybe you can put off your video.
Let me try to turn our video off. And then turn mine off. So she doesn't have heavy stuff to receive at her end. Susan, can you hear us? Sandra, okay. Oh, we lost her. That's quite unfortunate. So Wilson, while we wait for her to sort our internet, can we take Wilson from GR right now? Wilson, are you there? Are you ready to present?
Yes, I'm
All right.
I'm back.
Susan? All right. Something that can help is for you to turn off your video. You can turn off your video while you make the presentation. Sandra, you can also turn off your video so she doesn't have heavy stuff to receive at her end. And yeah, we can proceed that way. You're on the third slide. Let me go back there and you can proceed with your presentation. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. All right.
Okay. Sorry about that. The connection's not great. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to address zoonotic diseases. We have come up with a flip chart, which is 25 pages of pictures that you can see here, and it's going to raise awareness for zoonotic diseases in Liberia. It will be left at schools, and we will go into schools and we will teach the science teachers, and that will be left with them so that they can give to students, not only now when the campaign's going on, but in the future. And we will also be able to update this as and when we get more scientific evidence. We will also put billboards in prime locations, and when we go to the schools, we'll make a film of experiences that people have had with zoonotic diseases. We spoke about this and how best to resonate with people about the importance of One Health and keeping a good forest, good animals, good country and good people together. And a lot of people think about it doesn't affect me, but we want to take average people and show that it does affect them. So we will make a film of their experiences. The flip chart will be left with schools. And we've also done some games for children. You can see there in the corner, we have Mercy, who is our education officer, and she's playing the pangolin game. Okay, so this also shows about leaving pangolins, how it's good not to eat them, how important they are into the forest, and the possibility of zoonotic diseases if they do eat them. Okay, and one of the big events that we're going to do is we're taking the advice of something that the Forestry Development Agency did in Liberia. They did a campaign with 17 different schools, and they turned over the lessons to the schools. So what we will be doing is going in with our educators, and they will be talking to the conservation clubs and to the classes. And then we will raise a competition for each school to be able to come up with their own campaign. So we want them to see how they best think that they can transmit the information about zoonotic diseases to the schools, and how they will best learn and how they will best ensure that they have the One Health approach. So they will develop a campaign, and then we will have a celebration day when all of the schools will be able to come on a good day out. They will all present their campaign, and we will have a committee of members from the Forestry Development Agency.
Oh, sorry. I think we again lost Susan. So we see the daily life in some African countries and the challenges they have. Dada, should we go ahead?
Yeah, yeah, I think we can just proceed. I wouldn't know Right, Wilson, if you're ready, we can just take you afterwards. I'll just run through our slides and then, yeah, we can start to take questions to avoid waste of time. So Wilson.
Yes, thank you very much. Are
Right.
you able to get me?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, so my name is Wilson Chinda. I'm representing Game Rangers International, and we are tackling zoonosis education at Game Rangers. Next slide, please. Okay, so before we dive into our presentation, just allow me to give a brief overview of what Game Rangers does. So Game Rangers is a non-governmental organization which focuses on wildlife conservation. And so our main mission is to empower rangers and local communities to conserve nature. And we take a holistic approach to conservation and empower rangers in three thematic areas. That is the first one, resource protection, where we look at ranger welfare and indeed protecting the national parks in Zambia. Then the second one is community outreach. Under community outreach, we raise awareness against poaching and other related issues that come with wildlife challenges in communities. And the last one is wildlife rescue. So we do run an elephant orphanage where we rescue orphan elephant and keep them until they're ready to be released back to the wild. So in appreciation of zoonotic education, laid down here is our campaign strategy as Game Rangers International. Firstly, we look to reach out to various age groups and income levels in Zambia, looking at the diverse population that we have with different forms of people and their income levels. Secondly, we target both rural and urban areas, urban audiences with impactful and appropriate visual aids that will tailor a story on the effects of zoonosis diseases. And we plan to do this in 4 local languages, that is Bemba, Tonga, Nyanja, and Silozi, adding up English, which is the official language. Next slide, please. So our first approach to zoonosis education here in Zambia as Game Rangers is through community meetings. So in community meetings, we partner with community resource boards. These are organizations that look at authorities in local communities protecting and managing natural resources, inclusive wildlife. So with these partners, we educate them on zoonosis and the effects, the health effects that zoonosis poses on humans, and also aid them with information materials that they can use during the meetings they have. So we usually target these meetings because we have quite a number of people that attend these particular meetings. Then the second one is we also target the village action groups. So these are groups that focus on providing assistance to members of the community that are unable to meet the basic needs of life. So we target these groups as one of the primary groups that have access to people throughout their interactions as they're trying to provide the services that they do. Then the third one is we have established women groups, as we have an understanding that women and children are the most vulnerable in society, and mostly they are just on the receiving part. For example, if they have a husband who is a poacher or something, they will just receive bushmeat as it comes. But with the knowledge that we are giving them on the effects of zoonosis diseases, they are able to state their opinion and question the origin of the bushmeat that they have received. Then the other one is the traditional leaders. We believe that traditional leaders are influencers to their subordinates, and mostly what they say here in Zambia is what their subordinate picks. So we engage the chiefs, the indunas in these societies, educating them and giving them much information on the effects of zoonoses and the risk that they pose. Next slide, please. Conservation clubs. So in our approach in educating people about zoonotic diseases and the effects of poaching in Zambia, we have come up with conservation clubs in 60 different schools in the 4 landscapes that we operate as game rangers. That is the southern part of Kooperationspartner National Park, Lusaka Game Management Reserve, Rufunza Management Reserve, and we're also extending to the northern part of Zambia. So these conservation clubs target grade 5 and 6 students who we engage weekly through the clubs. So these students are educated on the effects of poaching and also what comes with poaching. For example, from poaching, we get bushmeat. And so we tell them the bushmeats, what diseases come in bushmeats and how these diseases can affect their daily lives. And this helps us because we inculcate these values to these children, knowing that they will pass on the message to other kids. And we see them as future leaders, that if we educate them to be responsible conservationists, they will help Zambia and all the communities they come from to conserve wildlife and indeed avoid these diseases. So in our approach, we incorporate film, games, songs, and art as we teach these children, because we understand that from film, children are able to see what we are talking about. They are able to understand what these diseases mean and how they can affect. For example, we had the Ebola virus. So from the Ebola virus, we make the children watch a documentary on Ebola, make them understand. Then from understanding, we run them through the games that they play, because we believe that only if one has got an experience, or if you are learning and actively participating in the lessons that you're doing, you'll be able to remember and indeed take that as gospel truth to others that have not been able to attend the training. Next slide, please. So the other approach we've taken is community radio. So we picked radio because of its broadness in terms of reach, and indeed the affordability of radio here in Zambia, as it is approximated that 90% of Zambian households own radio sets. So we broadcast in English and the local languages. So English is used mostly in urban areas, and the local languages in the rural communities where we have quite a number of illiterate people. And so these radio sessions that we have are 15 minutes live call-in sessions. So during these call-in sessions, we firstly give out a topic on zoonosis. After we've given out a topic in 5 minutes, we then bring in a competition. So we believe that this competition will motivate people to participate. And the more they are participating, the more they understand about these diseases, because they have something to entice them to participate in these radio programs. Next slide, please. Then as game rangers, we thought of accelerating the efforts that we have in community outreach, raising awareness against zoonosis by developing a wildlife discovery center. So this is a conservation education facility located in the Lusaka National Park, where we have the Lusaka Elephant Nursery. So the whole plan was looking at the orphanage that we have and also anticipating of the visitors that will be coming in to view the elephants outside. We decided to put up this discovery center. And what we do is hours or minutes before our guests can be allowed to go and view the elephants, we take them through conservation education. We give them some lessons on conservation education and the additional one on zoonosis disease transmission. So on average, we receive about 500 visitors monthly at the Wildlife Discovery Center and over 165 students that we take on discovery days. So these students spend their entire day at the Wildlife Discovery Center learning about wildlife and conservation and also the diseases that rise from activities, from illegal activities such as poaching. So in this Wildlife Discovery Center, we have interactive displays from collaborators as we work with stakeholders such as the Department of National Parks, which is in charge of all wildlife activities in Zambia, South Luangwa National Park. So these displays aid us in teaching these kids. As we teach them, they are able to assimilate and indeed digest what they see on the interactive displays. Next slide, please. The other approach we've taken is community drama, understanding that most of the communities in rural areas do not have access to television, which is an entertainment, which is a place where they find entertainment, and mostly they revert to community drama. So we saw an opportunity in community drama such that we were able to engage them and also supply them with costumes and props that have our messages printed on them. So what we do is we are always there when they're doing these activities, and we actively participate and enforce our messages through their songs and their plays. The other one is traditional storytelling. So traditional storytelling here in Zambia is something that is still active. And so every evening, people in villages gather around elderly men and women to listen to stories. So we go to these elderly men and women, provide them with these stories that we have on the effects of zoonosis and zoonotic diseases. So that they're able to use these stories as they narrate to the people that come to listen to their stories every evening. So we took this approach because we know that it is a primary kind of approach, and people are most willing to listen to these stories because they believe the person telling these stories is an authority in their own way. So these activities draw large audiences. And from what we've experienced so far from the time we started the zoonosis education campaign is that we are generating a lot of impact from these activities. Next slide, please. Then the next approach that we took was football tournaments. So we use football tournaments to reinforce our messages through stickers, banners, and PA systems that we play throughout the matches. And what we've done is we supply these teams, these football teams with jerseys. These jerseys have got our logos and indeed messages in front of them, just trying to associate football to what we are trying to teach them. Then the other one is we focus on capacity building with a key demographic. So looking at the crowds that come through and believing that sports is something that unites everyone and something that pulls these crowds together, we associate football to our lessons. We teach people about the effects of zoonosis diseases and indeed the effects of poaching. Next slide, please. So the other one, the last and final one is large-scale events. So we are providing the community with a direct benefit of conservation. So here in Zambia, our communities act on what they see. So as Game Rangers International, we try by all means to show the benefits of the work that we do, and this is through construction of schools. And when we do that and people see that indeed what these guys are teaching us is giving us the impact, they form the interest to follow what they're being taught. So for example, the last time we constructed a school, that was a few months ago, during the official launch of this school, we had so many people come to testify to us and indeed make a pledge to say they will protect wildlife and indeed teach people about the effects of zoonotic diseases, teach people of the diseases that may rise from these animals. So that being said, We associate these large events with a source of joy, pride, celebration, and the spirit of togetherness. Only when we are together, these messages can bring much more impact. Then the other form we've taken is we introduce or bring in guest speakers. These are people that have full knowledge in zoonosis, people that really understand how zoonosis is transmitted from animals to human beings. So we bring them in and they pull much of the crowds after we advertise for these events. So during those events, we display our promotional materials and distribute the campaign materials and also attract media organizations that come through to document these activities and these events. In turn, we build relationships and reinforce positive association with conservation through the messages that we deliver on the effects of zoonosis and how people can prevent zoonotic diseases. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, thank you very much, Wilson, for the wonderful presentation. That's a lot going on there. Thank you. Susan, if you're ready, we can take you now before we proceed to take questions from the audience. Susan, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. If we could just go to the last slide, and I'll talk about the zoonotic schools campaign that we're going to do.
All right,
Great.
all right.
Thank
I'm
you,
on the last
Dada.
slide. Okay, sure.
Thank you. Right. So one of the big campaigns we're going to do is we're going to go into 7 different schools and we are going to do presentations about the zoonotic diseases. As mentioned in Liberia, eating bushmeat is very much a culture, and we believe that the youth of today will be able to help to try and change that culture. So we want the children to develop their own campaign for their own school. So we want them to think about how they think that they can best learn and teach each other about zoonotic diseases, One Health, how to have a country that is healthy, forests, animals, and people that are healthy. What we will do 2 or 3 months later, we will have a celebration day when all the schools will come together and they will present their campaigns. We will have a committee and they'll be made up of members in Liberia from the government, from local NGOs, from international NGOs, and also from diplomatic corps. There will be awards given out, and the main idea is that everyone will learn about zoonotic diseases. They will have a very good day, and they will be able to take back to their schools and be ambassadors for why it's important to have the One Health approach. Thank you very much.
All right, that's amazing, Susan. Unfortunately, we couldn't get so much of details because of our network, but as I understand, a lot will still be coming up from your sanctuary and people can still interact, engage, and participate in all you do to promote this campaign, right? So that would be the end of the second part of the presentation. Now we'll proceed to the discussion part where we take questions from the audience. You can use the raise hand function to put your hand up if you have any question for any of the presenters. We'll unmute you and allow you to speak. And also at some point we had to terminate the chat function in the meeting because we were getting too distracted by people putting up their message while presentations were going on. But now we will turn the chat function back on. So if you wouldn't want to speak, if you want to ask your question properly, you can type your question in the chat box. I'll pick it up and put it forward to the speaker that will be taking your question. Please feel free to ask any question. It doesn't have to be a question. If you have contributions, you have suggestions for the participating countries and sanctuaries, please go ahead and do so. I'm seeing Eka Kunde Wilson here. Please, you can ask your question now.
Yeah, good afternoon, dear participants. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm Wilson, I'm Kakunde Wilson. I'm a veterinarian. I'm calling from Cameroon, from the southwest region of Cameroon. Well, I went through all the presentation with a lot of interest. And I don't know whether to put it a question or a kind of a preoccupation, but I have an observation. The first one goes with respect to the presentation of Dr. Egbetade, who happens to be my classmate in University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Thank you for that presentation. With respect to the disease transmission dynamics, which I have seen, which I observe, I think there's much pressure on food production. We talk about producing more animals, talk about producing more food, and therefore there's a pressure where the population goes to the forest to look for non-timber forest products, to create new farming, new farms for production, to look for fish and other issues. And this also gives the population the opportunity to come in contact with wildlife habitat, and therefore there's a possibility of spillover effect of emerging diseases to the population. You know, people have livelihood like hunting, selling of bushmeat, and that is one of the sources where people make their lives. And we talk about conservation. I think the only way forward is to come out with alternatives. People should not go to the bush to get bushmeat. What then do they do to get meat? For instance, I live somewhere in Mundemba where we don't even have beef. The only animal they kill, before you know it, the population buys it, and villagers need meat, source of protein. Therefore, they are obliged to go to the forest to get some of this game as source of protein. Therefore, with respect to the other activities and sensitization which has been presented by educating children in school, I think we should come out with programs, not only teaching children about the impact of zoonotic diseases, but coming out with programs that they can fund, like we can come up with a program of one child, one rabbit, one child, one chicken, or one child, two chicken program, where we teach them how to rear these domestic animals that are easy to rear, and that will act like a source of protein for our people. I think apart from that, that's the way forward. Let us see what can we do so that people can have meat instead of going into the forest for poaching. Thank you very much. It's a preoccupation. Thank you.
All right. I would consider that a self-answered question, but Dr. Egbetade, if you still have something to say about it.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Dauda. Dr. Wilson, thank you very much, my brother. Yes, you're right about marriage. And that's why, for example, in Pandrelus, there was a time we started encouraging people to raise animals in the backyard. And we actually have a competition where we ask people to bring their, in our own little way, we asked people to bring their proposals, and this was funded by Pandrelus. And the oversight function of checking if the animals are doing well or not was also on Pandrelus, and it did work. And I think the conservation body is to go with that, your suggestion of one child, one chicken, one child, one goat. In Dahalia in Africa, most people have their backyard farm, their backyard animals, which they rely on for insurance. But you agree with me that the reason why there is pressure for it is because there is an increase in population, there's an increase in demand in per capita. And I appreciate that suggestion. One child, one chicken. One child, one chicken. This will go a long way to actually shift away from dependence on protein sources from the wild. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. That's a comprehensive answer to the question. So the unprecedented increase in human population is causing this pressure on forest resources and biodiversity. But we wouldn't say that is an excuse. Can everybody okay? All right. So that is not an excuse for us to invite a zoonotic disease into the human population, right? Regardless of what the population looks like, we need to look into it. And the alternatives are available, but local communities sometimes they have their reservations to taking on them. So yes. Yeah, all right. So we'll be taking the next question from Abdul Muiz Abdul Karim. You can unmute yourself, please.
Okay, yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I must say all the presenters did fantastically well. Like, the session was very, very educating, and at the same time, a lot of innovative ideas, especially the idea of football competition as organized by the Cameroon and I think Zambia. It's really a wonderful one. So yeah, I think my question, part of it has already been answered by the first person that asked question, because I feel that it's actually not enough educating these young kids about zoonotic education without, putting in proper measures to mitigate some of the, sorry, it's raining here, so so to mitigate some of to mitigate some of the causes of these conditions. So, but further, I would like to ask Dr. Egbetade, yeah, that is the first speaker. Sir, please, do you think there are government policies that can be put in place, to actually support people? Because from a personal point of view, I feel why most people in the rural communities engage in the eating of bushmeat in quotes is because of the fact that, as we all know, Africa or some countries in Africa are the epicenter of poverty. Some of them don't actually have alternatives to these products. So do you think there are government policies that can, be put in place to support this set of people so as to reduce their interaction with wildlife species, and probably if there is any policy that can stop them totally from, eating wildlife products? So thank you very much. That would be my question.
All right, Dr. Egbetade, another one for you. Oh, all right.
Thank you. Basically, the issue about livelihood and alternatives, it's always been a raging debate. What quantity of wild meat do you really require to feed your family? There have been emphasis on domestication of animals like grasscutter, like the antelope. People who are actually living at the basement of park services of national parks. The problem remains that the human beings can be, the satiety of human beings, it cannot really satisfy the longing of some people to actually go to the forest. That was why I said there should be go on irresponsible hunting. So this is how the hunting process goes. Someone is going to his farm and sets up about 10 traps. And on his way back, he takes another route and wouldn't pass that route until another 1 week. About 10 to 20 to about 30% of whatever the person owns might be lost to other wild animals or to other hunters who might just profile. So basically, it's not just about most people that are hunting, more of a side job. So if government can push more on sustainable livelihoods, I think this will reduce the pressure on the forest. Another key thing that increases the hunting is when people open up the farms. When you open up farms that are sharing boundaries with parks, with gated areas, there is no way you'll not come in contact with animals in their protected space. But now when we are talking about hunting, we have to differentiate between hunting within protected species and hunting on your farm. These are these are critical places that are conflicts do arise when people are trying to explain some of these things to people. That because we understand how the people live. Someone who sets a trap to kill an animal that is destroying his farm, if the farm is not within a forest reserve, there might be no law to stop such a person. When people go directly into the park services, setting traps, setting snares, that's when government frowns at. So in short, I would say yes, there are government initiatives, there are non-governmental initiatives to encourage people to actually domesticate some of these animals. The problem is the change cannot be acquired, or we cannot achieve the change just by pushing on the government to it. It has to come with a complete social re-engineering of our minds. Bushmeat is not just a delicacy for the poor. There are some rich people too that will travel kilometers just because they want to go and pick up bushmeat. Going to need a concerted effort, all and sundry, to actually stem the tide. It's not going to happen as a miracle. It's going to take repeated efforts. I mean, you need to know that some NGOs have been on wildlife conservation since 1989, some since 1977, and we are still on the wall. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. So I would one of the questions in the chat box, I'll answer it. Then admin, please, I am lowering your hand because we don't know your name and we don't know what to call you, but if you can change your name by the time I finish answering the question. All right, so Aminu Shehu, who has been preselected as an ambassador to the Zoonoses education campaign in Nigeria, is asking if outreach to UNTAR is the main target. Yes, of course. So in the program documents that you received before applying for the program, you would find in there that your primary assignment is to reach out to people in your local community, regardless of their demography. If they have relevant activities that they are carrying out that facilitate transmission of zoonosis, as we highlighted, you should reach out to them with a message. So yes, you are supposed to reach out to local hunters, bushmeat consumers, wildlife traders around you. Yeah, so that's a demography we are interested in. However, during the onboarding meeting that will come up next week, you get more information about this and how to go about it. Thank you. Yeah, as I understand, there's a question about hunting in the chat box. Well, I can't find it. So admin, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is BM Bobo. I'm speaking from Liberia and I'm from the Libaza Wildlife Sanctuary. I'm the manager of the Libaza Wildlife Sanctuary. So I actually listened to all of the presentation and yeah, I'm very impressed with what is going on. I do have a comment, and this is to do with people speaking of livelihood alternative for people who are in forested area, people who are always getting non-forest product from the forest to be able to sustain themselves. So myself, this is a very integral part that I'm always wanting to support. But I think the primary source of this entire thing is for people to understand that these animals that we are interacting with are causing serious health problem for us. So this first step of carrying on awareness is very important. If people know that animals can transmit diseases to them, it will definitely ring a bell, and then we can start to fund programs that will be able to help people in the livelihood sustainability area.
All right, thank you very much. And we really appreciate everybody's participation and attendance. We know you have a lot to do, but you still took the time out to attend and to listen to what we have to say. Moving forward, you can look out for our activities on our social media pages, Pro Wildlife, Limbe Wildlife Center, Libasa, and GRI, we all have social media handles where you can, get to catch up with what we are doing, how you can participate. Thank you. We really appreciate your presence, and we look forward to seeing you when next we decide to have a gathering like this. Thank you so much.